Majority of small business owners say that their business is exceeding expectations, with 71% optimistic about the future despite economic challenges. This according to a recent JPMorgan business banking sentiment survey of small business owners. We'll hear with a closer look. I want to bring in Ben Walter, CEO of Chase Business Banking. Ben, it's great to see you. So these findings were a little bit surprising given the current macroeconomic environment right now. Small businesses are feeling very optimistic. What's driving that?
Well, it's interesting. We bank 4 million small businesses, and we survey 500 of them every month to find out how they're feeling about the economy. And we always see a little bit of a disconnect. So we always see, if you ask any small business owners, they say, my business is doing pretty well. It's doing just fine. And part of that is just being a small business owner. You have to be an optimist. But over the last few months, what we've seen is a wider divergence than we normally see of people saying, my business is doing great, but the outlook out there, it's pretty lousy. And that's where people were for the beginning of the year. And a lot of that, you've heard the word vibe-cession, people not feeling so great, a lot of it having to do with inflation and the stickiness of it. What we've seen over the last few months is that gap is closed. People are now saying, actually, my business is doing pretty well, despite some of the things that people are saying about the economy. And I think it's going to continue to do well. So I think, a lot of the things that have been going on in the economy that were sort of new, people hadn't seen inflation for a generation, people hadn't seen labor shortages for who knows how long. Now people are kind of getting used to it. They're adjusting their business models and they're feeling like they can do well despite those things.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear how that divergence, or at least that divide, has closed. And you wonder how much of that is actually a harbinger of what's to come beyond small businesses. What about cost pressures, though? And how have they been able to navigate that? And how has that affected sentiment, especially among small businesses?
Sure. I mean, at the beginning of the year, it was weighing on them hugely. They certainly still are dealing with it. If you look at small business, if you ask small business owners what's going on, 37% of them say, inflation's still really a problem. But that's still less than half, right? So there's still a majority of them who are saying, I can deal with this. And a majority, you have the number up there, a majority say they are going to raise prices. When you talk to small business owners, and I'm lucky enough to talk to lots of them every month, when you talk to them, what they say is, I'm still probably going to have to raise prices, but a lot less than last year. And that's for a couple of reasons. One is they're seeing their prices go up more slowly, and you've seen that in the macroeconomic data. And the other challenge they're having is they're coming up against their customers' ability to pay. And that's particularly true the closer you are to a consumer business, the more you're running up against that ability to pay. So the more you're starting to constrain your price increases, and that will eat into margins. But we think there's enough room for that to run. The other numbers you just put up have to do with labor shortages and supply chains. Again, those are things that really spiked during the pandemic. They've come down, but they're still out there, and they're persistent. And that's why I think you're hearing people talk about persistency of some of these challenges. It's why you're hearing people talk about the Fed holding higher for longer. These things are real, and they're not just going away.
Ben, how are they adjusting or really dealing with the labor shortage? Because it is a massive issue. Are they being forced to offer higher pay? Are they being forced to offer other types of incentives in order to get the workers that they need?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. So pay has definitely gone up, and we see across the board they are offering higher pay. In certain segments, I hear lots of pleas to politicians to open up legal immigration. I'm not talking about illegal immigration. I'm talking about legal workers. Those numbers are down significantly. Anything in the hospitality industry is really feeling the pinch from that. So they're begging for the doors to be opened back up to get some more workers in the door. That's one of the angles. They've gone to non-traditional sources. So you hear, how many people have you heard in general about switching careers and finding new things to do? They've gone to non-traditional sources to find new sources of employees and to hire up. And then they're just making do with less. A lot of them are getting smarter. So a lot of the efficiency plays that people have sort of been holding on to for a while, they're now putting them in play. So they're trying to automate with software, they're trying to modernize, and they're trying to figure out how they can squeeze more through with less.
So Ben, that leads me to my question, which is, it's great that businesses are feeling good, that sentiment is positive. Have they increased their investments as a result? And if so, where is that going?
Yeah, they have increased their investments overall, but it's very industry to industry. So if you look across the industry, software, investing heavily. Professional services, investing heavily because they see the returns. Consumer businesses, less so. Hard investment, capital investments, starting to slow down. So it's a real mix in terms of industries and where people see demand. If you look at the industries that are most resilient, though, they're going to keep powering through, and we see continued strong investment.
Ben, the turmoil in regional banks, obviously a massive concern going back to March. Is that how worried are the small business owners that you're talking to about some of the fact that maybe we could see some more pressure when it comes to lending and what that means for their business then going forward?
I mean, if I try to be a little cynical, I hope they're not, our customers, we hope, are not too concerned about it because they happen to bank with us. However, we do, but many small business owners do bank with multiple banks and go to multiple places for sources of credit. And we certainly hear pressure about, will it be harder for me to get the capital that I need to run my business? So I don't know that you've quite seen the pinch hit the ground yet, but there certainly is concern about that. We are hearing talk about tightened lending conditions across the industry. At JPMorgan Chase, we lend through the cycle. So when things get rosy and everything looks good, we don't tend to lend more. And when things look tighter, we don't tend to really squeeze it down as much either. So we try to lend through the cycle and be there for our customers all the time. A lot of other banks do too. Other banks are feeling a squeeze. And so you'll see a mix of outcomes out there. But access to capital is always an issue for small business owners. And if you do see a real crunch in that, that's going to put the pinch on them.
Ben Walter, great to have you. You're CEO of Chase Business Banking. Thanks so much.
Thank you.